Hi everyone, welcome back to the Nerd Impact podcast. We're on episode 24, and today's topic, kind of sitting in the whole hype up to No Way Home, is the original 2002 Sam Raimi's Spider-Man with Tobey
Mm.
Maguire and the rest of the cast. But I think everyone by this point knows what this film's about. This is a huge one for us, especially myself. You know, this was probably one of the biggest impactful films for me, kind of pushing into my movies and all the passion of Spider-Man and stuff. So yeah, lots to talk about today, guys. So yeah, let's kick it off. Nath, Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, this is, I mean, this came out when I was, what, 4? So this was, aside from the animated show, on, the original Spider-Man animated series, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
Mm.
But this was really my major exposure, I think, for a lot of people of sort of my generation, sort of, young, well, older Zoomers, I suppose, would be the best way of putting it, is, yeah, this was my first proper exposure to the Spider-Man character, my first sort of proper superhero film. And so this was, a pretty big part of my childhood in terms of my connection with Spider-Man and the whole sort of superhero thing. It was very hype back then. And I think it's been interesting seeing, at least from my perception, as as I've grown up, how people have sort of, you know, changed their opinion on the original Sam Raimi films. Is that I know people at first thought they're a bit, you know, corny, I suppose, but do have their moments. But I think they've become quite beloved now. I think, and I mean, I could be wrong, but my perception always was that they were a little bit, you know, on the nose some
They,
way. But
they are a bit campy, but
you know,
it's a comic book film. Like that's back, especially in the early 2000s, even with like the X-Men's and stuff, they were campy but gritty, and
I,
that was great.
yeah, I think it was sort of mainly just Blade that sort of broke that and took more of the like
Yeah.
at least for the early superhero movies, really took the sort of more grim dark angle, I guess. But yeah, no, I hugely. I mean, rewatching this film, I remembered so much of how much I loved it, I guess, and the incredible amount of memes that are still in it, and it still holds up as a really enjoyable experience. But yeah, I mean, Ben, what about for you?
Well, I mean, Spider-Man for me is probably one of my favourite superheroes of all time. I've got Spider-Man tattoos, loads of collectibles and things. Um, I mean, I'd have been what you were 4, so I'd have been 3 when this came out. I think 2 for me was probably more impactful in terms of getting me into superhero films and the superhero genre.
Yeah,
Like I say, the 90s animated and this and 2 were definitely my in to superhero films, and
hmm
this when it came on Netflix not long ago,
yeah,
and absolutely loved it, regardless of the very obvious early 2000s sort of CGI, all the quick takes, and
yeah.
it's definitely a product of its time.
hmm
But I think it still holds strong as the better of the 3 Spider-Mans. I think Maguire is probably universally, I think, the best. I think most people would agree.
That's
hmm
a hot take. I don't
Yeah,
think we want
wow.
to touch on that.
Well, from
I
polls
think
I've
we have to,
seen,
don't we?
Yeah, okay. I mean, we'll get into that in a bit, but that's a hot take, especially with No Way Home imminent.
but yeah,
Also,
I think
you say about the CGI. I gotta say, I still think it stands up pretty damn good for a
I,
film that's
I
20 odd
it
years old.
I was going to say,
definitely.
I didn't think it was as jarring as I thought it would be. There's one particular moment I can think of where he's running on the rooftop after he's just been bitten and he's first discovering his powers. I was like, that is terrible CGI. But the rest, it was like pretty much acceptable, you know?
It's just very like early 2000s. There's like a lot of moments that it's like that would not fly today. Just the sort of
Yeah,
actor of it. I'm trying to remember. There's like I think there's just a few scenes where like the screen gets covered in things, but it's just very obvious CGI that doesn't look
yeah.
great, but it fits the film. Like you say, it's a bit campy.
hmm
The Spider-Man as a character being very quippy and very sort of light-hearted, it sort of works. It doesn't take you too far out of that sort of world.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tobey Maguire's is perhaps the most awkward out of all the Spider-Man, honestly. Like Tom Holland is
Yeah,
Tom Holland is the kind of like I hate to use the word, but it's the most apt description I could think of it. It's like adorkable, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And Andrew Garfield was just way too cool of a Peter Parker, but
Yeah.
yeah. I
Tobey
don't know. He was, but when it came to kind of when he was with Gwen in Amazing Spider-Man, that's when he was kind of gawky and awkward.
ah
I know
yeah,
he got
yeah,
smoother with it, but yeah, he was like this dude who was skateboarding and like
yeah.
then dunked a basketball and stuff. I was like, Peter Parker would never do that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, Tobey Maguire.
I still like Garfield though, just in case fans think we're
Yeah,
trashing him. I still thought he was a very good Spider-Man. He's a very good Spider-Man,
yeah.
Yeah.
especially. So, yeah. I mean, I'm just going to get into it for me on the impact of this film because Jesus, I mean, this film in itself is actually a bit of history outside of just the fact that it's Spider-Man. But this, for UK viewers, this film was the kind of start of 12 A's. You know,
Oh, really?
I was dead excited to see this in cinema, but it was rated 12. I was going to go with our auntie, and we got turned away because it was a 12, and because so many people rallied behind the fact that this was supposed to be for kids, like kids want to go and watch Spider Man.
Yeah.
This was the first time the film board decided to change the rating to a 12A, so you could obviously go and watch a 12 film with an adult. So Spider Man was the first 12A film ever made, and it was because so many complaints came in because including myself, I wasn't old enough to go and watch it otherwise. To the
Uh,
point my mum got an illegal copy of it, but I refused to watch it because I wanted to experience it in cinema.
yeah.
You know, so yeah, that piece of history there for anyone really. But yeah, this was the first film that changed the game for 12 A's and stuff. I mean, obviously in America, that's essentially, you know, across the board. As long as you've got an adult with you, you can go and watch what you want. But you know, in the UK, we never had that option, and we still don't. Apart from 12 A's, you don't have 15 A's, you don't have 18 A's. It's just Spider Man started off that whole thing, and
I mean,
God bless.
it's
So glad it did.
it's just funny. It's funny you say that because I remember it was one of our aunts as well that took me to to see. We thought it was a comedy, really. Do you remember the Filth, the James McAvoy?
I was with you. I was
Um,
with you.
Were you with?
Yeah, yeah,
I remember hearing
yeah,
about it. Yeah.
yeah. We thought it was going to be like
Yeah,
haha
we thought
funny,
it
and we're like, what the fuck?
it's so funny when you talk about like ratings and stuff like that because in Australia they had like they had an R18 but that was reserved for stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Yeah,
and like Wolf Creek, that kind of thing. But pretty much everything in Australia that was slightly, and they're huge in censorship over there. It's weird, especially with games and movies. But anything like remotely sort of violent just fit into this just big slot called MA15 plus, and
yeah.
that could just cover pretty much everything. And I remember my mom took me to see um, Law Abiding Citizen,
Ooh.
and not the way it was marketed, at least in Australia, was like it was a sort of like sort of a crime thriller thing. I didn't know it basically turned out to be somewhat like a torture porn almost, because it had such a wide band in that classification. It just contained such a breadth of content, right? But yeah, I mean that's an interesting point you make about 12A. I had no idea that Spider-Man was the crux of all that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm almost 100% sure that it was Spider-Man because I remember the uproar about it because I'd have only been 7,
Mhm.
and this obviously is marketed for children. But as we'll get onto, it needed to be a 12, especially back then.
E-
And I know things have become a bit more tame, and films have kind of been are a bit more softer with their ratings or how much you can get away with. But the end especially and stuff like
Yeah.
yeah, that needed to be a 12. Kids needed to know that they were going into something that wasn't exactly super light-hearted and friendly, even though for predominantly most of the film it is. But as you both have said, Spider-Man for me was with Batman. They are my two favorite heroes, and I know that's quite generic for a lot of people. But as Ben said, I grew up on the Batman animated series, the Spider-Man '90s series that I've got behind me. Like that was everything for me. And then the Raimi films came out, and I absolutely adored them. Even 3, I've got a soft spot for. But even to this day, like Spider-Man and Batman have never gone away. I mean, my comic collection's not in shop, but out of all the characters that I have, of comic books on, Spider-Man is actually my number one.
Yeah.
I've got probably, yeah, I've nearly got a full shelf of just Spider-Man graphic novels. So, you know, when I say he's my favorite character, I'm not kind of underestimating that. And the same, I've got a tattoo of him and Green Goblin. So there you go. Spoiler alert: my favorite villain is Green Goblin. So, I will say 2 is obviously an absolute gem. It is by and large the like definitive Spider-Man film, but I would put Spider-Man 1 ahead of it for myself personally because of William Dafoe's Green Goblin.
Okay, that's crazy. I think that's quite an unpopular opinion, definitely.
Probably.
As I
Don't
said,
get me wrong, I love Doc Ock, and I think Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is insatiable.
Yeah.
But because I'm a Green Goblin fan, you know, even in the TV show, the Green Goblin was my favorite character. In the comics, I try and get mostly Green Goblin based ones if I can. Defoe's Green Goblin was incredible.
oh yeah, I don't think anyone can deny that the voice, and I loved the suit. The suit was just
I like the suit.
I
Um,
hate the suit.
Yeah, a lot of people are like it's Power Rangery, and I get it, but I kind of like it. They'd have made it more perfect if they just put a purple robe over it, which they obviously do a nod to when he's in the building on fire. But if they just put a robe on him, which I think looks like they're going to do in No Way Home, if they just put a purple robe and hood over that mech suit, yeah, sweet.
I will say that bit in the burning in the building, he's like, there's another woman in there. There's still someone in there, and it's just quite obviously the Green Goblin because he's got the big ass helmet. You can see it's just barely covered by this blanket, and he's just going like, oh.
He does like that full on yeah sort of scream. I mean, that's Sam Raimi through and through, though, isn't it? Like comedy jump horror sort of trope there.
It's amazing.
Well, it was quite scary, to be if I'm honest. That scene in particular really quite scary for someone to obviously like.
As a young kid, yeah.
And especially just the sort of situations in it, it feels quite drastic, and then obviously Green Goblin out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, but I think that sort of turned to sort of lighthearted. Then that action scene is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I think,
with the slow-mo pumpkin blades.
Yeah, I think that's
so
incredible.
Good. Yeah.
I think that's what the Raimi films have done really well. All the action scenes, they might not be particularly long, but they always have those sort of gem moments that make it quite unique.
I mean, the standout 2 action scenes throughout this series is the final fight in this one, and then obviously everyone's favorite is that train scene in Spider-Man 2, which is just that is again, that's still like one of the most perfect action sequences in most comic book films, if I'm honest.
I mean, I totally agree. Like Spider-Man 2 was huge for me as well. Like I still remember. I'm pretty sure I have it. I still have like bits of, not the full complete set of, one of the Spider-Man 2 Lego sets. Like I had a little Doc Octopus and everything, and I loved it. I loved him so much. But I remember always being freaked out by how like it was like attached to its spine, the whole sort of appendage. That really freaked me out as a kid. But
I mean, speaking of toys, I don't have it anymore. I'm absolutely gutted. I had the Defoe's Green Goblin on the glider, and you could click a button and it would glide across the floor.
Yeah, I remember that. I thought the glider was awesome in this.
Yeah, I liked
really
I
cool.
liked the design. You know, they had to. I know there's a lot of leaked images of the original concept and stuff, which was pretty cool. It was more comic book accurate, but I liked this, and I've got to say, I know we're praising him a lot already, but William Dafoe did most of his stunts. He lobbied, he lobbied for this role. Sam Raimi didn't initially want him casted, and he was like, no, I can do this. And he did all the stunts because he didn't think the stuntmen would be menacing enough in suit. So again, for a guy who was, must have been in his 40s, 50s back then, he was doing most of them stunts himself. I mean, the bit where they smash through the Daily Bugle, I'm pretty sure that's him in suit and stuff. Like, yeah, he was proper dedicated to this role, and you can see it.
I was going to say he was in better shape than Tobey Maguire in this film. Yeah. Like in the first scene where he's getting like gassed up with the performance enhancers, the dude must be like you said, like 40 or something. He looks in great shape considering.
Yeah.
Like, and I think is crazy, the commitment that some of these actors have. And I mean, it's not the whole cast is fantastic. Like, of
Yeah,
course,
let's talk about that.
we've got Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. I think for a lot of young boys, probably like, they probably liked redheads
Mm.
after this.
Okay.
Well, she plays a perfect girl next door, but also you've got that difficulty behind it that makes her more sympathetic, and you root for her. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Prince Peter and her.
I was on the rewatch. I was thinking, my God, she's in such a horrible home environment. Like, you feel so bad for her. Like her dad comes out, like, you'll never be her. You'll never be any of that. You'll never be this. It's like chasing her down the street. She's just trying to go to school. It's like, stuff like that. I guess as an adult that you pick up on more, and it's like,
Yeah.
damn, that's rough for her, man. Like, and it makes her more sympathetic, definitely. And like when she takes the money from the cash register, and the guy's like yelling back at her, like, don't let that happen again, and all that sort of thing. So. But yeah, I mean, aside from just Kirsten Dunst, we have James Franco as Harry Osborne, who does, I think, a really, really good job of like he's still Peter's friend, but he's still really slimy, and
He's a
like
dick.
he's a dick, but he like toes that line so well. Like you kind of hate him, but then you also do feel kind of bad for him, but then you don't, and then it's like he doesn't really stand up to MJ when his dad goes on a rant like she's just after the money, she's just a gold digger and all that sort of thing. You just kind of like pathetically says no, she's not. But like I don't know. I think he did a pretty good job as
I thought he did
Harry
really
Osborn.
well, and again, he dyed again commitment wise. He dyed his hair to look more like Defoe's son, and they do look really similar. Like you would if you didn't know, you'd have probably been like, damn, they might be related. But yeah, I think he did really well, and obviously he gets his arc kind of built over each film, which I think went
Mm,
quite well. He was definitely a good Harry Osborne, if I'm honest. It was, I wouldn't have cast anyone different. I think Dane DeHaan's in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a bit too, like,
oh, I
almost,
fucking
like,
hated him.
he's
Oh
a
my
bit, I don't
God.
mind him as an actor, but he was just a bit of, like, a slimy indie, like, bit of a dick bag. I know, like,
Yeah.
his story's different, but he's almost too cool to be Peter's friend, whereas
Yeah.
Franco's Harry is, like, a bit gawky and awkward enough that it still kind of makes sense.
And he's a bit of a loser as well. Like he says, like he's
Yeah.
dropped out of all these private schools, and he's barely making it educationally. So like, of course, it makes sense that he'd want a smart friend like Peter to sort of
Yeah.
help him with that. But I mean,
But I think no, carry on now.
no, you go on, Ben.
No, I was moving on to you.
Yeah, no, move on.
Well, I was going to say, I think more importantly, the standout supporting role,
Mm-hmm.
um, John Jonah Jameson.
Fire!
I think the most
Sirs.
perfectly cast person of any film ever.
Yeah.
He looks spot on, sounds incredible. His mannerisms are just so accurate.
Yeah.
I think he's sort of infamous for that role now, and
Crap, mega crap. So good. He's like one of the most quotable parts of this film.
the
mean,
laughing meme is probably one of the best Spider-Man memes out there.
I mean, as you mentioned memes like the I'm something of a scientist myself. It just
Yeah.
there's so many moments because it's such a. I feel like that sort of early 2000s camp just hit something in terms of like meme culture, or it's just potent as fuck. And I mean, I was watching an Elvis the Alien video on the Amazing Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2. So Andrew Garfield's on.
Yeah.
Apparently, J. Jonah Jameson doesn't show up in those because
No.
J.K. Simmons couldn't do them, I guess, for scheduling or whatever. And so they just said, well, like, no one else can portray the character as well as him, so they just
Literally no
won't
one
have
can.
him in.
Yeah, I think like Ben said, he's like the universally most perfectly cast like comic book character ever.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he's back for No Way Home, and he was he cameoed in Far From Home. But
Mhm.
yeah, carrying on with the cast, though, I mean, I've got to shout out for someone who is almost a pretty like MVP character throughout the whole kind of series, especially in second one, is Rosemary Harris as Aunt May,
Yeah.
like a driving force behind Peter's kind of actions to become Spider-Man again in the second one. Just the way she portrays her loss over Uncle Ben, who again is played by Cliff Robertson, who again delivers that almost universally known quote of "with great power comes great responsibility." Not didn't have a huge part in this because Uncle Ben never does, but I think he smashed it out. Like,
Yeah.
I remember as a kid watching that, and I was in tears. I still
Definitely.
get
I
a bit
think
like, oof.
Yeah.
I think for the Rami one in particular, I think people can see their sort of grandparents or elderly aunties in them, and I definitely saw grandma and granddad,
Mm.
Uncle Ben and Aunt May, making it all the more devastating when Uncle Ben obviously dies, and all the trouble that Aunt May goes through throughout the series, and definitely has some obviously the Green Goblin attack, the octopus Doc Ock attack, but she's always sort of keeps that sort of light spirit about her, and
Yeah.
that is for me something that I see in our grandparents a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely brings a more sincere impact for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I was on the rewatch. I just realized how tragic it was. Him.
Mm.
When the guy robs. Yeah, he's like, I missed the part where that's my problem, and it turns out the guy he let go in the elevator was the guy that shot his Uncle Ben, and I didn't really pick up on all that as a kid, but it's extremely tragic the way it's delivered, and especially
I
when
mean,
he.
it's essentially Peter's fault. Like that
Well,
is
yeah,
his
yeah,
actions cause the consequence, which again comes with the whole great power, great responsibility. Um, just quickly want to rattle off like the last two or three like cameos we kind of get in this. So first off is Flash Thompson is played by, I'm going to butcher it, but it's Joe Manganiello, who is Deathstroke in the
Oh yes, he is.
Snyder Cut, and that's really all I know him from. He was in a series as well. He's also married to Gloria from Modern Family, so nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
He's married to.
and he's married to Gloria's actress in Modern Family. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. Then we have obviously the wrestler who is Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah,
You're going nowhere.
I loved that wrestling bit. I said this to you before I rewatched it.
You
I think
did, yeah.
the wrestling bit is like my favorite bit of the movie. And I only realized rewatching it now after having watched The Evil Dead and everything. That's Bruce Campbell, the announcer. And
My
yeah.
of
guy's
course
in all three.
I
He's
know.
a different person.
I should have instantly connected, seeing as it's Sam Raimi, but it just I only realized this, and I was like, oh, that makes it so much better. And like,
And he gives Peter's
yeah,
name to him.
and I
What's
love
your name? The Human Spider.
I love how he just stands there. He's like, "You got my name wrong. I'm not Spider-Man."
You got it right though. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is so gawky. Like he's
Yeah.
like such a gawky character. It's very, very amusing.
There's that bit. There's a bit where Mary Jane's on the like the path, like the sidewalk ahead of him, and he just starts like talking to her, like he's 10 meters away, and she just keeps walking, and she gets in the car and drives away. He's just having this little monologue to himself. It's like
I like the other bit as well is when he catches the all the food on the tray, which by the way took 156 takes.
that was. I
Legit,
can't believe they did that
legit did it.
practically.
I know. But when she's like, "Have you got contacts in?" and he literally doesn't say anything because he's so like, "Oh my god!"
He just
like,
stares at her. Yeah.
like that. That was me in high school.
Yeah.
If like a girl I had a crush on spoke to me, I'd be like,
Oh,
"Eh."
I mean,
Like they get the gawky like high school kid who's in love thing spot on.
yeah.
He was 26.
He was
And everyone in the high school, obviously, and I thought it was just because I was younger, everyone looked older, but even still, they look fine.
Oh yeah, that's a university.
Exactly, yeah. So, but I love the high school scenes. That the fight against Flash, I think it's great.
I wouldn't want to fight me either.
Yeah. Even
your own
where he
hype man.
drops it on the teacher drops the food on his face at the end. I think it all just sort of plays into that. It's a bit, like you say, a bit camp. But the sort of undertones of it, of Peter, obviously, he's ridiculously strong. He's got all this power now, but he's still a naive kid who's awkward around girls. And I think we see ourselves in that a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what makes Spider-Man so relatable. Like that's why he is so relatable, and why the original trilogy goes down so well for fans, because he is a character that people can kind of sympathize with, they can connect to. You know,
Mhm.
everyone's been that gawky kid, or you know, been on one side of the, you know, the scale in high school. Then you have, you know, the second one where he's looking for jobs, he's got real world problems, trying to be an adult. That we can connect to that still. And then the third one, yeah, okay. Well, you know, he goes through the change, and you know, again, I'm
Bully
going to defend
Maguire.
this. Bully Maguire is an absolute king.
Hi, Halloween
I'm gonna
costume.
I'm gonna defend that very quickly though, and I
Oh.
know a lot of people have said it, but the reason he does those stupid dances and acts the way he does is because the symbiote only enhances his perception of what he thinks is
Yeah.
cool. So it
Mhm.
doesn't make him like a James Bond suave guy. He thinks in his head that like the now take on this sort of thing is cool. And I think as an adult and rewatching it, I actually kind of understand it now. I mean, I enjoy Spider-Man 3. It's not complete trash. There's some good bits to it, but it's just not as good as this one or the second one.
Yeah, I think they're a bit all over the place with Sandman, Venom, plus
Studio interference, unfortunately.
yeah, of course, and I think that's why Sam Raimi didn't come back for the Amazing Spider-Man, isn't it? Because of all the studio interference with Spider-Man 3. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I do have to say this, and I know that there was a very controversial change, but for me, I always thought that Spider-Man could shoot the webs out of himself. So I was
Oh, okay.
surprised watching Amazing Spider-Man where he built the wrist launchers, and I was like,
Yeah.
why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? And I know people didn't. It is, I think, looking back on it, very creepy and a little
Yeah,
bit
it's
weird.
grim.
It's quite grim when you think
I
about
don't know
it.
how he retracts them or anything either. Like, ugh.
There's just even like going towards the mechanics of it just makes my brain just
Yeah,
ugh.
bow out of that.
But that's
Yeah, but I get what you did though,
yeah, but that's what
because
it's the
you
first
grew up with it.
exposure. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
This is my first proper exposure to Spider-Man. So
I suppose also you know, they probably could have, but it would have been an extra few scenes or a few minutes of them trying to show the logistics of making the web shooters. And I think
yeah,
this movie was paced quite well. So if
Mhm.
you'd put that in, it may not have made a difference. But I'm just trying to look from a perspective of the like, you know, the directors and the script and stuff.
yeah,
Maybe they were just trying to save time, or just they thought, yeah, okay, we'll do this. But it doesn't take anything away from me. I think again now you are right. It's very controversial. A lot of people still don't like it, but
yeah,
it takes nothing away from him. I mean, the scene when he's trying to work it out is still hilarious. Where he's like, "Oh,
yeah.
above and away, web,
Yeah.
Shazam!" Like, yeah, it's fine. It's again campy cheese, and it works. But also we haven't spoke about the suit for Spider-Man, but I really like the suit still. Still think it's one of the most
Yeah.
iconic interpretations.
I think maybe the web overlay is just a bit too harsh on the eyes because it looks really
Mm,
really like sliced up and it looks cool. Don't get me wrong, I like the suit, but still, I think compared to the suits like Tom Holland has, it's very like like one surface, right? Like
yeah.
there's not much texture to it. But this one was perhaps just a bit too much in that direction. Like
Mm.
I like Andrew Garfield's suit, to be quite
Yeah,
honest.
I
I think
like the
that's
one in Amazing Spider-Man 1, which is
yeah,
controversial. I
yeah.
prefer the
I do.
Amazing Spider-Man 1 one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the Amazing Spider-Man. I feel like the face just doesn't look right for me. I don't like the eyes. Um, Texture eyes, like you're saying, yeah, there's a bit too much glass and a bit too much. There's thick webs.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually quite like that. It gives him a bit more of a, I think, an armored look.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
Goes well with the Goblin being a lot more bulkier and mech suit wise. Um, but yeah, I think Garfield's just didn't do it for me.
I
No,
think
that's fine. I think with Spider-Man, the various Spider-Mans are all going to be. There's always going to be an argument or a debate between them until hopefully, if rumors are correct, because we are recording this before we go and watch it tomorrow.
hmm
If they appear in No Way Home, maybe people's interpretations may change depending on how they do with the characters if they turn up. God, I hope they do that.
So absolutely.
I think it would be very, very disappointing for a lot of people if they didn't at this stage.
I just don't think I don't know. I don't think they will not be in it because there's been so many leaks and there's been
Yeah.
so much hype, you know, and they haven't kept it as well. Like they haven't kept it as quiet as they did like Endgame. Like no one knew that Cap was going to lift Mjolnir. no one knew how it was going to end. No one knew Iron Man was going to die. Like everyone hypothesized, but no, there
Yeah.
was not even a hint of confirmation. Whereas obviously it's been a lot harder to, kind of stop the set leaks. And
Hmm.
Tobey Maguire apparently, like when people ask him, he's just really fucking coy about it. Like some dude posted a selfie of him and Tobey Maguire on Instagram, and he's like, I asked him if he's in No Way Home, and he just winked at me. I was like, that's so great because Andrew Garfield's like on like interviews on like national TV, been like, we ain't in Spider-Man, I ain't in Spider-Man, it
Yeah.
ain't happening, I ain't getting fired for this. And then Tobey Maguire just is like not even involved in interviews, just like walking around like, I might be, I don't know.
Well, it just depends on what sort of role they play and how big it
Yeah,
is. I hope it's somewhat significant. So I feel like Doctor Strange will be playing a massive part in it. I've luckily avoided any spoilers. I think I only
mm.
watched the first trailer
Hmm.
to keep this under wraps.
I
Um,
think for me, it's just I'd like to see some sort of conclusion with Maguire's Spider-Man because we started with this one, and okay, there's not a cliffhanger as such ending with three, but there's so much left that could have been done because obviously they were going to do a fourth one, and I think I'd like a bit of closure on that character and Garfield's character, to be honest, because they left that
yeah.
with him reeling over Gwen's death, and there was
Mm.
supposed to be a Spider-Man 3, and then they just thought no, it tanked. So, you know, but anyway, back to this gem of a film. I mean, yeah, God, I love this film so much. Like, as I said in the intro, like this film really set me into going to the cinema. Like, I was only 7, so I still had to go with people, but I
Hmm.
wanted to go and watch films, and the superheroes were my thing because of, Batman, Spider-Man cartoons. I'd go and watch X-Men in the cinema. I think we watched all 3 of them when they came out. God, I can't remember what else. Batman Begins, like any superhero film that was released in cinema, I was straight there. And 20 years later, opening day stuff. As you know, prior recording this is the day before No Way Home is out. But me and Ben never miss a beat with big superhero films that we want to watch. Well, before kind of the last few years events have happened, we were at midnight screenings without fail. Even if
Mm.
some of the films sucked, like Joss Whedon's Justice League, but that's another story. So yeah,
Well, I mean, I think one of my favorite things about Spider-Man, and I think something that the films always seem to get pretty, pretty, it seemed to do pretty well, is capturing how cool web slinging would be. I feel like just the funnest thing you could possibly do, and I feel like they all, no matter who's portraying Spider-Man, they managed to nail that feeling of the awesomeness of just swinging through New York City, and yeah, that's like the unique part of Spider-Man, right? And I think it's important that it conveys to the
and
audience how much fun he's having doing it.
and again, I think they even with like we said the CGI's just about standing test time. Swinging scenes still look beautiful. I
Mm,
couldn't fault them once. They look
yeah,
so good. Obviously, they've gotten better as the films have progressed. Like Garfield, you get that first person perspective, which looks so good. And then Tom Holland's is just it's almost just part and parcel of it now. Like you're just kind of used to it.
yeah,
But yeah, like again, they got so much right with this film. Okay, the Goblin costume and the Spidey costume has a divisive fan base, but web swinging, great. The acrobatics and how he fights, nailed it. Like again, even though it's 20 odd years old, it still looks good.
I think what they do really well in one as well is they show him being, Spider-Man. He's going around, he's saving just here and there. He's swinging about, and he does like catch a thief there or like rubber there. He does. You see him being a superhero. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily all about the main plot. You see him interacting with the city, which I was watching a video from someone else's channel on YouTube, and they said New York is a main character in the Spider-Man, especially Sam Raimi first.
Mm.
You know, the whole thing with Goblin trying to turn Peter because like, oh, they'll hate you and or they'll reject you,
mm.
and when they start throwing stuff at Goblin.
You mess with New York, you mess with all of us.
Yeah, I think it's just it's kind of cool how the setting itself is such a major part, just in the way who could pop up, and everyone in there has their, like, even when they're doing interviews and things. I think
On that, do you remember Xena, Warrior Princess?
yeah,
Yeah, Lucy Lois is like the spiky emo looking girl who's like human spider. Sounds hot.
is
Yeah,
that
she
it? That's like
that's
yes,
Xena. It's
Really?
that's
Xena.
crazy.
On my last watch back, I was like, I recognise you, so I googled it. It's Lucy Loris.
Well, the Wasp is I swear the Wasp is J. Jonah Jameson's assistant, right?
No, it's not. It's
Isn't
Elizabeth Banks. It
that's
looks like
Elizabeth
it looks like
Banks?
yeah.
Oh,
Ben Elizabeth Banks is Rita in the reboot Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, I know.
she
Okay, you
did
look like blank.
No.
She's been in
that was
other
not a good
stuff,
Rita
but
Repulsa. I'll say that much.
Okay.
yeah,
That was not.
no.
She did not have no, definitely. Well,
You
that's
can't beat the original. You can't beat the original Rita.
God, her voice is so iconic. That's just gets etched into my mind. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's getting very far off topic. I mean, I did not know that. I mean, now that you say it's Elizabeth Banks, I can see it. But
Yeah.
I genuinely
It does
thought
look like Wasp.
it does because of
Yeah,
course they have the same
with
haircut
the
and
bowl
everything.
cut,
Yeah. But
Also, another good casting shout was Robbie Robertson. I know he's not in it much, but he was a good Robbie Robertson.
which one was he?
The black guy, his assistant, JJ's assistant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he's talking. He's only in it for like one scene, isn't he? He's talking about.
He's in it for one or two, but
Yeah.
he's in the sequels as well. But
Oh,
again,
okay,
as someone
yeah,
who's read the comics and watched the animated series, it was a good Robbie. To be fair, like kind of that guy that's back Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, I mean that sort of the Office in there. I know they get more screen time in the later films. Just see it there. You've got the ass licker. You've got the guy who's defending him, and then you obviously got John Jonah Jameson, who's just the hard ass who actually hates him. And I think that sort of depicts sort of like how people would view Spider-Man really well in all angles.
The menace is a criminal.
I love how Peter just meekly kind of like tries to defend Spider-Man. He's like, I don't actually think Spider-Man was. He's trying to help the cops.
Here's an interesting topic that has been making the rounds recently. So you know that whole Joker quote about you can really people reveal their real selves in their final moments.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, when Goblin smashes through the Daily Bugle and asks Jonah who's the photographer, he's like, I don't know who he is, and everyone's like, oh, so he's a hero. He obviously cares about Peter. But then I've seen on the other side, was he only protecting Peter because if he gives away Peter, no more pictures of Spider-Man, which means no more money for the Bugle. It's an interesting debate. I like to think that JJ is actually a good person inherently, but
yeah,
he could be looking at that from that point.
Because there's a lot of scenes in the '90s animated where Jameson is quite heroic in a sense, and he's quite an honourable guy. So I do like to think that he's probably protecting him. Yeah, I don't think he's just.
I mean, he also helped create Scorpion though, so that's not great either.
True.
I mean, I would probably say that I interpreted it as him being heroic, and I do like that sort of character trope of the hard ass with a heart of gold sort of thing, So like for me, I prefer for him to.
I'd like to, but I just thought it was an interesting take that people are going, well, actually, it's probably because he's protecting his company.
Yeah.
But like I said, I prefer that. I mean, also, I just keep going over the scenes of Green Goblin in my head. Like I know Maguire's Spider-Man is great, but Defoe steals this show for me. The meme ability, the quote ability, just how he doesn't give a shit. Like he's just all in for this film. He does the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing in the mirror. He does like the weird faces. You can't do this to me for everything I sacrifice. Like all that sort of stuff is so good. He even sings the Itsy Bitsy Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
So
good.
I love after the first bit where he's like flying. He's like, "We'll meet again, Spider-Man."
That's what I mean. So camp, and I love it.
I do have to say though, like I lost my immersion immediately as soon as I think it gets towards one of the. Is it in that fight in the burning building where Spider-Man says, "You're out, Gobby"? I was like, no, no, that's me gone.
That's where Maguire's Spider-Man teetered. Is the quips weren't 100% there.
Oh,
like,
they
I
were
like
not
the one
there.
I liked the one though when again he smashes through JJ's building at the
Yeah,
Bugle, and he's like, "Quiet, mommy and daddy are talking now." I was like, "Okay, that's quite Spider-Man." But
yeah.
you are right. Like some of it is a bit. But
Then,
that's
then you
again
got,
where Green Goblin just steals it with his quotes.
Mm,
then you also got to remember it is very, very early days Peter in it. So where the later
Yeah,
one
true, true.
yeah,
is, I don't know how long the film spans over, but I think they leave high school. So
He's in university
yeah,
by the third one. He's in university in the second one, but I think he's still in university in the third one.
yeah,
You just don't see much of it.
mm,
They're in jobs, actually. No, yeah. So I think he's still studying, but obviously Mary Jane's an actress
yeah.
who then fails in the third one. I can't remember. It's over a good few years.
Mm. So he has the time to sort of develop his comedic chops, I guess. But I just thought that was like
Yeah,
I, even before with the Green Goblin pretending to be a woman, that whole scene was just so wild to me.
I know.
But yeah,
Tell you a scene we need to talk about is the Thanksgiving scene, and when Norman goes into Peter's room and he's hiding under the balcony. That was
yeah,
so intense as a kid. I mean, it's still great now. And then when he's on the roof and the blood drips, like I remember as a
mm,
kid watching this, being like, game over. Like he's done. Like nah, that's it now. And obviously he works out who Peter is because of the bike. The bike clipped me. Which obviously the cut from their battle is so good. Like that is again is very Norman Osborn, Green Goblin kind of character in the show, in the comics, is he would figure that sort of stuff out. I mean, he obviously figures out Peter's identity in comics and stuff, but again, it was done very well. And I know I keep talking about it. I just think Green Goblin, the first Green Goblin was so good. Like he's why the film is above two for me.
yeah,
well,
definitely.
I think their whole relationship through the film is really good. I mean, the first scene they meet, um, he's just singing his praises and bigging him up, and I think obviously being who Peter Parker, obviously living with Uncle Ben, that it's I mean, it comes full circle at the end. The whole father figure thing. Uh,
Mm,
even when Osborn, obviously, we know him as Green Goblin at that point because obviously he's the Jekyll and the Hyde, but he's still got that sort of fatherliness towards Peter when they meet at Harry's apartment,
Oh yeah,
and then to see him like that, and then to see how he talks to Aunt May and things when he's there carving up the turkey,
mm,
that's
that was a weird
very
scene.
terrifying. I
Yeah,
think it's very sort of just unsettling.
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's again what the film does so well is Peter and obviously Norman's transformations happen on the same night. They both go through the same journey together, but they go in different paths.
Mm,
Obviously, Peter's is learns to with great power, great responsibility, but with Norman's, it's more like with great power comes no responsibility. Like you can do what you want, as he does that proposal to him. Like we could take over the world. We can kill people. We can continue fighting against our own ideals. Again, it was portrayed really well in this film. After a few watches and you're looking for these things, that's something I noticed is
yeah,
they are two different paths of the same kind of accident. They both were given great power, and it's just how they chose to do it.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at where they are in life as well, though. So, like, obviously, Peter's a young, naive kid.
Mm,
Obviously, that has whole sort of life ahead of him, where Norman's his life's falling apart around him. So, what's his options? Uh,
yeah,
and I think they
yeah,
play that really well. That boardroom scene is, I think, brilliant. The way he
yeah,
just screams is, I can just hear it in my head so vividly.
yeah, yeah. It's just
Go to the fur.
so good. Defoe's amazing. I can't wait to see him again.
well, I mean, hopefully you guys enjoy No Way Home with a more healthy dose of Green Goblin. But
I
yeah,
need some cheese from him. I need some. I need like when he sees Mary Jane, it's like, "Hello, dear." Like, yes, I need that. I don't know if I'll go that route.
I mean,
I want to
I,
hear him sing Itsy Bitsy Spider again. If
Yeah, me too.
I was singing that, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the first scene where he shows up and he's during like the Oscorp parade and he does his little flyby in that. And, like,
Oh, the balloons look terrible. That was
yeah,
one thing I did not get right.
the balloons
And
do look
Macy
terrible.
Gray is singing, so we're back in 2000. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think Macy Gray has been relevant since Spider-Man, basically. No offense to Macy Gray fans. I like her songs, but I don't know if I've never seen her on a chart since Spider-Man.
Yeah. But
Speaking of which, sorry, we need to talk about the damn song Chad Kroeger, Hero,
Oh
and the
God,
music
yeah.
video for Spider-Man.
oh god.
Absolute belter of a song.
Oh, I love it.
Absolute amazing
Chad
song.
Kroeger's
And
the Nickelback singer, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but that
God.
song was perfect for the Spider-Man theme song. Like they had the accompanying music video with it.
I do not
Oh yeah, the
remember
music
that.
is great.
Do you know? I had it on I had it
No.
on cassette, and I
Oh,
put it on rewind it and repeat every single time. Man, it's so good. I was obsessed with that song.
Jesus.
They still
Okay.
play it in Nickelback concerts occasionally as well.
Serious?
You know,
Oh god,
Yeah,
imagine attending a Nickelback concert. Christ.
oh, don't bash Nickelback. We like Nickelback here.
Oh,
I like that.
that's it.
Yeah,
I can't do this anymore.
we may lose some fans from that, but I stand true to my colours, man. However, on another note of that, Ben will appreciate this more. But do you know the song "Bother" by Stone Sour?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in the running to be a Spider-Man theme song because at the end of that music video, he has a Spider-Man ring on and it falls off, and I think they may have lobbied to have that in the film. I don't know.
Okay. That's a fucking tune. That is
Yeah, it's a great song.
sort of a shame, I guess.
Mm,
But no, Heroes spot on. Couldn't have asked for a better song.
but,
Is it was as infamous for me as like Breaking Benjamin is for Halo,
yeah,
as we spoke about in a previous
Yeah.
episode. Like those songs just go with those franchises too well for me.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but getting back to that first Green Goblin attack, though, like there are so many things wrong with that scene. Like Mary Jane spends like 5 minutes sat on that ledge as it slowly collapses. She could have literally, someone could have just pulled her straight off it, or she could have literally just stepped off it at the beginning.
Yeah.
She just sits down and screams. And then there's the dumbass kid who while Spidey's trying to save Mary Jane, he just stands there and watches as the stage is
Oh
going to
no,
collapse.
yeah.
The kid just, it blew my mind. Like, well,
However, you have your Stan Lee cameo during that scene.
yeah,
so
you
that's
do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, the skeletons. Come on.
Yeah, that's kind of that's again dark,
Yeah.
But also very bad.
bad but dark.
I forgot that happened. They just got vaporized.
Yeah.
I mean, the pumpkin bombs, especially in the final fight with the slow motion explosion. I
Oh,
love those the pumpkin bombs, and even when you see how it like sort of works in that slow motion scene, like the armor comes off and there's just like the heat explosion. I think it's incredible.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
like say earlier, his glider, everything really fits well.
Yeah, I mean, like his glider looked so awesome. I just like I remember as I used to talk about the same scene, like where you can actually see where it has like vertical jets to keep him like when he's hovering, and then they also like rotate round, so like a Harrier jet. Almost. It's cool that they put that much thought into it. It isn't just some sort of like just anti-gravity device or anything. It actually like looks like a legit piece of tech.
However, I just want to mention in obviously the final battle, and again, it makes me laugh because Sam Raimi was just like, because I wanted it in there, but where did Green Goblin get that trident at the very end of it? Like, wasn't really ever in his glider. And Sam Raimi was just like, yeah, just want to give him a trident. Like, why not? Like, there was no reason for it. It was never part of his glider. Green Goblin's not had a trident as far as I remember. They were just like, we want something cool, so we did it. But kind of wrapping up. I mean, we'll standout scenes, memorable bits. Like, I know we could go through the entire film basically, but anyone got a standout moment, something that is etched into their brain?
The bridge scene.
The what? Sorry.
The bridge scene.
Yes.
That is. I'm surprised I haven't spoke more about it. That is probably one of the most infamous scenes for me, at least. Even down
And
to
they
the shot where,
subverted it. Yeah.
yeah, the shot where the Mary
In the
Jane's
eyes.
the cable carts in the other. I think it was obviously knowing obviously the comics and the animated series. That scene sort of there was a certain expectation there for what's to happen, but I think they nailed it.
Yeah, that's a great scene actually. I forget about that scene actually.
I always thought he was in two.
Mm.
I don't know why. I always thought he was in two.
I mean, I think that scene does a great job of showcasing his actual strength, right? That like he's holding up the entire um, what is it, like the cable car with a whole bunch of kids on a rope, plus Mary Jane, plus holding the other rope. Like that's
And he
mental.
shows Andrew Garfield how to save someone falling off a bridge or a clock tower.
Yeah, yeah, and they're very like.
Shade.
I mean, as unfortunate as that foreshadowing is, I mean, like I said, the wrestling scene's my favorite. Just how
Mm.
dumbass he looks. Like Macho Man, like I used to watch a lot of WWE, like Raw and SmackDown when I was a kid. So the whole cage match was awesome. So I just really liked
That's
it.
great. Macho Man Randy Savage is amazing as well. There's like
Yeah,
obviously, unless you've watched the trailers and stuff, but for the No Way Home trailer, they left a clip in by accident where the lizard gets punched by invisible air, which is why people think, okay, maybe it's Garfield. But someone did a cropped in Randy Savage is going, "Hey freak, you're going nowhere," and then like beating the lizard with a chair, and it's my absolute favorite meme at the moment. Yeah, it just makes me laugh. Also, very quickly, Mary Jane at the beginning in the lab when Peter gets bit by a spider is
Mhm.
wearing Gwen Stacy's iconic coloring.
Oh really?
Yeah, because obviously she's not in it, but her colors
Mm.
are. But yeah,
Just got the green jacket.
yeah, it's she has the purple skirt on as well, I think.
I just again, he has so many insane lines with Mary Jane. They're like, where she's like, "Try not to make me look ugly," and he's like, "That'd be impossible." He just like tucks himself behind the camera, and then like the
That's
one,
how a
no,
gawky
but like
teen was
the
for.
one where like he's taking out the trash and she comes out. He's like, "You heard all that?" And she's like, then she just tells me, she's like, "You're taller than you look," and he's like, "I hunch," and she just goes, "Don't." I'm like, what kind of exchange is that? Like,
That's
human
realistic.
human
Yeah.
beings
That
don't
is
talk like
absolutely
that.
realistic.
That's just insane. I like I just I love it, but it's like it. I suppose that's where the character is, right? Is like in that kind of campiness, as we've said so many times. But it's just
I'll
so
tell you for free.
delightful. It's so
I've had some
delightful.
dialogue with girls, a teenage crush. I've had dialogue like that, so I won't go into it because it's cringe fest and a little bit inappropriate. But I've had similar conversations, so yeah, I don't think it's too far from the realistic, take
Yeah.
on
What?
people having the hearts for someone. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I am Peter Parker without all the cool spider powers.
But I mean, what about you, Aiden? What's your favorite scene?
It's gotta be the final fight. It's just
Oh, fine.
incredible.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he's all damaged, like you don't see that much anymore. Like when a hero's fully battered, the suit's ripped, he's got blood on him. Like the MCU's obviously a little bit more child friendly, so you get to see a bit of damage. Endgame they went for it a bit more, but you didn't. Okay, in Thor, but originally you didn't see like huge like bits amounts of blood. You didn't see them like fully beaten and bruised. Iron Man's armor would get damaged, but you didn't really see much of Tony and stuff. Or maybe I'm just going back as a 7-year-old. That was a lot to take in. That your hero was battle damaged. They had blood. They were beaten. He was getting his ass kicked by Green
Yeah.
Goblin, especially when he does
Yeah.
like that jumping, like spinning clothesline attack on him. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? That's insane. But that bit's great. But then it's just the whole fact that they go straight from the comics and have the Goblin empowered with his own glider. That is again
Mm.
from the night Gwen Stacy died, and that whole scene and speech is great. The fact that Norman's still twisted and calculated to try and convince him that he's turned, and then you see him obviously blip his glider to go through. And also, that's a brutal way to go. Like he gets stabbed in the pelvis, maybe a little bit lower, but again, it's
Yeah.
just that whole as Peter flips over, he just goes, "Oh," and then
Yeah.
gets like jammed up against the wall. And again, quite graphic. He's like coughing up blood and stuff. But it's the whole thing that he's at the end is like, "Don't tell Harry." And again, it's that whole if
Mm.
you a person really reveals who they are moments before the death. It shows he actually cared about his son. He didn't want to ruin his, reputation. But obviously, that proceeds then to Harry thinking that Spider Man's a murderer and setting up Spider Man 2. But yeah, that's my favorite scene, and it probably forever will be out of the Spider Man franchise, very closely with the train fight.
I mean, I'd forgotten at the ending that he friend zones
Oh, he
MJ.
fully does.
I,
Yeah.
I, I totally forgot. Again, just extremely awkward dialogue in that scene. Just uh, unreal. But I mean, poor Kirsten Dunst having to read those lines. But I still think such an unexpected sort of twist. Like, of course, he's doing it to make sure to protect her. Basically, that he cares so much about her that he's willing to sacrifice being with her in order to keep her safe. Right?
I was fuming as a kid when
Yeah,
he friend zoned her.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like that's such a lack of resolution, right? That's like annoying.
Yeah, but it sets up again. It sets up. I mean, I'm assuming he had ideas of where the second one was going to go because obviously that's all set up very nicely in the second one that he
Yeah,
had his shot and he blew it because he was Spider-Man, and that's another reason why he gives it up and stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, any final thoughts? I mean, I could talk about this film for hours on end, but I think we've got on our key points.
I think we
Oh
have.
yeah, I'm just hoping to see him tomorrow night in all his glory. As a like in the Spider Verse, the older Peter, the experienced. When I want to see that, I want to see the mentor Maguire.
Instead of Bully Maguire.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with even if they just have a scene of all three of them doing the dancing suits or whatever, and that'd be
The sort of
fine.
the tone of the MCU at the moment, I could see that happening.
Me
Absolutely.
too. Me too.
I mean,
Yeah,
I will just say that the memes that have spawned out of this trilogy are so potent, and the
so good.
Rami meme subreddit is fantastic. There's so much good content on there, like just consistently innovative, taking different lines and somehow making fantastic memes out of them. Because just the dialogue itself is just built for that. But no, I think this film's fantastic, and of course, Spider-Man 2 is probably my favorite as well. Like still have the video game Spider-Man 2, which is still so good, so good. But Doc Ock's always, he's my favorite Spider-Man villain, and it's such an awesome film. But this one does a great job with as we said, with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. What an absolute performance!
By far. Ben, what's your favourite? You haven't actually mentioned one or two.
Um, I've
Or
got
three.
no. Three's all right. I've gave three a lot of shit over the years, but I think reflecting on it now, three's okay. Um, I think two, just because I think it's a better film,
Mm,
but I don't really have a preference between like the Green Goblin or Duck Ock. Neither one's more or less a favorite for me personally. I
yeah,
think they're both really well casted. Both play
Agreed.
incredible, play the roles incredibly. Have really interesting sort of arcs throughout. So neither one is better nor worse for me. But I would still say two is the superior film.
Maybe we'll have to do Spider-Man 2 then sometime down the line. Well, we definitely will
we
because again,
we will.
we could have a lot to talk about on that film. But yeah, I think that's it for today. We hope you've enjoyed this. We hope it's hyped you for Spider-Man No Way Home. And if you are seeing it, please don't spoil it for anyone. We will be not spoiling it for anyone, so please
Mhm.
don't do it yourselves because there is a lot of hype around this film, and we are excited, and we hope you are too. And yeah, we will see you in our next episode. Take
Uh,
it easy.